So glad that you've joined us this evening. As you can see on your screen, we have a very full agenda tonight. We're very excited. We have experts from all over the country. And you'll have a chance tonight to interact with them. So I just want to remind everyone, I believe we're going to encourage each of you, if you have that ability on your phone or computer, to put yourself on mute. You'll be able to Merle, our meeting manager tonight, who's volunteering, and will monitor your questions and thoughts, and then will give us some guidance about what to do. Tonight, as you can see from the agenda, we are going to be joined by some individuals here in Wisconsin that are going to share, I think, a very interesting perspective on how in a work site individuals can become advocates and are advocates for living donation. Then we will have a after their presentation, you'll get to ask some questions and answers. And then we'll be heading to the East Coast to have Andrew Fullerton from the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, National Kidney Foundation Public Policy Office in Washington, D.C. And Andrew brings unique insights from all over the country. So tonight, our efforts here in Wisconsin are led by volunteers, and those volunteers are incredible, and I'd like you to meet both of them now. First, I'll toss it over to Jill Dillon, who is located in the central part of our state. Jill, are you able to join us?
I'm Jill Dillon, and I am a living kidney donor. I donated in July of 2011, so coming up on our 7-year anniversary. And you can see my picture there with my friend Sarah, who I donated to. Sarah and I actually started a group called Central Wisconsin Gift of Life, and we do some work with the University of Wisconsin and raise money for them and for the Restoring Hope Transplant House in Middleton, Wisconsin. So welcome to everybody, and I'm glad that you could all join us. This is our 4th webinar, and it's been a learning experience for sure, but it's been a lot of fun, and we're hoping that you enjoy tonight's program. And now I'd like to throw it over to Michelle, and she can introduce the program. Thanks.
I am Michelle Schuerman. I am a living kidney donor, and I donated my kidney to the father of my best friend from high school in August of 2014. I donated at the Frederick Health Center, and honored, truly, truly honored to be a part of this initiative, Living Donors Together of Wisconsin, an opportunity to connect living donors together, to share stories, to share ways that we can continue to advocate and connect in the donor community, and truly just be there for each other. So I'm thrilled that we can be hosting today the 4th webinar in our series, and we'll be sharing more throughout the program, but also an opportunity to culminate Living Donors Together of Wisconsin in Madison at the end of July. So stay tuned for more updates on that throughout the program. But I am thrilled to introduce our special guest today from Baker Tilly. I remember the day that my friend Trish asked me to go for lunch with her and her sister Nick. And I was like, why are they asking me for lunch? What's happening in Trish's life that she needed her sister to be there with her to join her for lunch? Like, what are the updates? What's happening? So I was happy to meet them for lunch. And very quickly, I learned that Nick was approved to be a kidney donor, and that we were there enjoying lunch together to share more about my experience and for Nick to be able to ask questions. And I am so proud of her for her decision to share her organ, and for being with us today to share her experiences as a living kidney donor. And joining Nicole Manzeck, is the HR generalist at Baker Tilly, Miss Chelsea Gallagher. And Chelsea has been with Baker Tilly for almost 2 years. And on our discovery call together to learn more about this program this evening, I learned that Chelsea traveled all the way from the East Coast to Wisconsin. And truly, we are thrilled to have both of you on the call this evening to share more about your experience and also how Baker Tilly supported Nick through her living organ donation. So with that, I will turn it over to Chelsea and Nicole.
Great. Well, thank you all for having us today. Nicole and I are excited to be here and be able to join in for such an important call. So again, Nicole is obviously a Baker Tilly employee as well as a living donor. And I sit on the HR team here in Madison, Wisconsin, originally from the East Coast, but I do support the entire Wisconsin business unit. So a little bit about myself, and then I'll kind of transition over to Nicole here. I started at Baker Tilly in January of 2017. Prior to that, I was an HR generalist at the Bruce Company here in Wisconsin, and before that, I was a recruiter. So my role varies a little bit. I could do anything from assisting somebody with a leave process to kind of helping implement policies and procedures, deal with compensation, performance, and just general career conversations. So thoroughly enjoy my role, like that I get to kind of stray from the standard employee relations to kind of assist with more of these one-off cases like Nicole's that we wish would be more regular. But again, excited to be here today and to kind of share some of the different opportunities that Baker Tilly offers for those who want to go out on leave or be a living donor. So I'm going to pass it over to Nicole to introduce herself and share her story. And then we can jump into some of those offerings that Baker Tilly has.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole, and I have been with Baker Tilly for about 4.5 years now. I am a recruiting associate working with our search and staffing team that we do third-party recruiting for clients of Baker Tilly. And I can't say enough about this company. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story, and then that'll lead into Chelsea to able to share with you the policies and support that this firm offers. I donated to a friend of mine in December of 2016, and like Michelle, I did this at the Freighter Medical Center. A friend of mine, she was in need for a kidney transplant. So I'm like, of course, let me fill out the paperwork. What do I need to do? Filled that out, had my initial phone screen, passed that phone screen, and was scheduled for the full day of testing. And at this point, I knew I needed to share what was going on in my life with my boss, just knowing I'm going to need a random day off, and who knows how many more other random appointments that I'll need to go to. So shared that with him, and then also asked him to keep that confidential. And the only persons then that knew the story was my immediate boss here in Milwaukee, the president of our practice who sits in Madison, HR, and myself. I didn't share with my team. I didn't want anyone yet to know in case nothing, came of this. So skip to 2 months later, I found out that I was a match and I was able to donate to my friend. So during this time, my bosses were very supportive, kept asking me for updates, and then I was finally able to tell them that I was approved and be able to share that story with my team. As soon as I did, the president of our team, a partner here in the firm who runs our search and staffing practice, the first thing she said is, we have to take care of Nick while she's out. So during this process, I had planned to use all the PTO I had, borrow any PTO that they let me, because Chelsea will explain to you that we have this process, and then just during any recovery time, work part-time from home as I could, because I do work an office job, so I'm able to sit on the couch with a laptop and pick up a phone. I was ready to do all of that just to keep my paycheck coming in as best as possible, in addition to any FMLA and short-term disability benefits that were offered to me. However, that wasn't good enough for my boss and the team. So what they did was, working with HR, they set up a want to call it kind of like a bonus system or a bonus for me to supplement my pay in addition to my FMLA and my STD, my short-term disability, and to make sure I received a full salary the entire time I was off. And not only that, during my recovery period, they encouraged me to please take as much time as needed, don't rush to be back. So they were so very understanding and extremely generous and kind. And they, stressed to me, take as much time as you need. And I ended up being off for 5.5 weeks. I was ready to go back after about 4, but my doctor wouldn't let me. So 5.5 weeks off in the middle of January and February. And never once did the team make me feel like, it was a burden that I was out of the office, not, contributing. And not once did I fear that I wasn't going to come back to having a job. So everyone texted me, called me, checked in on me to make sure, see how I was doing and so forth. So just having Baker Tilly go above and beyond anything that I expected was awesome.
Well, thanks, Nicole, for sharing your story. And I am so happy to hear that we were able to help support you in this time of need for somebody else, and also in your time of giving. So wanted to jump into a couple of different policies and the philosophy, or one of the philosophies behind Baker Tilly's kind of value structure here. So I will start by saying that we do support our employees in a variety of ways. That being said, it's not like we have a specific policy in place or leave in place that is specific to living donor organization or donations. That being said, we certainly support any initiatives to make situations like this occur. So we'll kind of delve into each of these a little bit, kind of chose the top 3 here. One is we obviously offer leave policies, both Family Medical Leave Act and personal leave, depending on how long the person has been there. We also offer a PTO donation program, which Nick got into a little bit, so I can kind of go around the philosophy behind that. And then also one of our core values is our stewardship value. So again, we'll delve into each of these just a bit here. So the first is our leave policies. I'm sure that everybody on the phone has heard of FMLA. Essentially what that does is grant employees up to 12 weeks of leave per rolling 12-month period. And there are a couple of qualifications that people need to hit in order to qualify. The first is that you have to be employed for at least 12 months and also have worked 1,250 hours during the preceding 12-month period. And then the last item for this specific instance, and being a living organ donor, is that this would fall under the serious health condition of self category. Another point about FMLA, depending on the circumstance, it can either be paid time off, unpaid time, or a combination of the two, again, depending on the reason for the leave and the benefits that the employee is eligible for. So that includes short-term disability, long-term disability, etc. And as Nicole pointed out, she did utilize short-term disability with her specific leave of absence. And then the other item that I will note, actually, let me rewind a little bit here. So paid leave does apply generally for the first 2 weeks of FMLA leave, and then any short-term disability benefits that he or she is entitled to. As Nicole mentioned, unpaid leave can also be substituted with vacation time in these instances. So personal leaves is also another great option that does help for those employees who maybe haven't been with Baker Tilly for 1 year. So this essentially is, if somebody doesn't qualify for the above, they can apply for a personal leave of absence via our leave of absence website. Approval is based on the type of request and the needs of their team and business unit at the time. And I will say, in my experience being with the firm, Baker Tilly really does make any reasonable effort that they can to return the employee to the same or similar job as held prior to their leave, subject to staffing and business needs, whereas with FMLA, you're obviously pretty much guaranteed that you'll be coming back to that position. So again, those are the two different types of leave that we offer. Next, our PTO donation policy. This is kind of just a snapshot of what it is. So it supports Baker Tilly employees who are in need of additional PTO as a result of a serious illness or medical condition of the employee's spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent. And those kind of categories there are based on kind of an FMLA strategy. So our employees accrue their PTO on a biweekly basis. I think more and more companies are kind of going with the whole accrual process at this point in time. So based on the employee's employment status, whether they're exempt or non-exempt, their annual budget hours, and years of service, their PTO allocations may vary a bit. So they are able to also take PTO in advance, meaning that you're able to go into the negative. So if somebody had up to negative 40 hours of PTO per our policy, that is actually acceptable. We would just expect that they kind of make that time up as they accrue more and more PTO. I will also say that a PTO donation form does need to fill out by those wishing to donate to their coworker in need. Like Nicole noted, and actually in another instance on their team in particular, so the search and staffing team, they did this for another employee who had a premature child, and they supported her as well. So again, they can be used in instances like these. Eligibility, there is obviously some sort of backbone here. Employees do need to exhaust their accrued and available PTO options ahead of time, and they do need to be employed for 12 months and worked 1,000 hours during the preceding 52-week period. So again, this program is set up for other employees or employees in the organization to either assist to somebody who they know directly, so somebody like Nicole donating an organ, or they can donate their time not knowing who it's going to at all, but just somebody in the firm that's in need, they're able to do that as well. So really nice program that's in place there. And then the last point that I wanted to note is just one of our values. Here are our four. So collaboration, integrity, passion, and stewardship. Stewardship is just saying that we invest in the future with the intention of leaving everything better. And we really do want to make a difference and leave a proud legacy. So just like we supported Nicole in her endeavor to become an organ donor, we do other things as well, such as giving back to the community. We have a stewardship day where every year in August, we kind of shut down all of our firms and all get out and donate our time to the community, give back. We all put up an out of office saying that that's what we're doing. And then we also have something called Hero Time, which is an additional 8 hours of time granted to each employee who want to go out and give back to the community. So again, when somebody like Nicole comes to us wanting to give back to somebody, we make it happen. We firmly do believe that our people are our greatest assets. So we like to support them in any way possible. So even though we don't have a specific organ donation policy in place, there are certainly workarounds that we can kind of figure out to make sure they're fully supported in their endeavors. That being said, I do want to point out that it's important to note that each individual can be supported in their endeavor as a donor differently. That goes as far as to say that we had another organ donor in Madison prior to me joining the firm who could have been supported by his team and his business unit in an entirely different way than Nicole. So I'm sure that Baker Tilly made sure that he was taken care of. Likewise, companies can support their employees in totally different ways than Baker Tilly did or does in specific cases. That's not to say that their employees aren't supported. I know more and more companies are adding policies in place, and that's certainly something we may look into in the future. But the bottom line is we do everything we can to protect our people, and if they're going to give back, we want to do the same for them. So any questions on anything that Nicole or myself have talked about? Any other donors on the call who may have been supported by their employers in a similar or different way to how we kind of supported Nicole at Baker Tilly? Any employers who might be on the call, anybody who does know of a specific living donor policy in place. And Cindy, I know you and I kind of talked about, I think there was some legislation passed maybe in Colorado or something around this very issue or topic.
I have somebody who typed one in from Sarah
sure.
Hicklin. And Sarah, you could unmute yourself and say it if you wish, but I can read it. I understand that employees of the state of Wisconsin get paid time off if they are living kidney donors. Does anyone know if that's the case?
I think it depends on your policy as well. Certainly federal or state policy would apply, but depending on how your employer supports you, it could end up being trumped by whatever is offered by the state, if that makes sense.
This is Jill. I actually work for Marshfield Clinic, which is probably many of you know or have at least heard of Marshfield Clinic, which is a large clinic in northern and central Wisconsin. And when I donated, I actually approached the HR and our administration about providing a living donor policy. I was fortunate because I'm an optometrist there, and as a provider, I was able to get 100% pay for short-term disability. And so I was able to take 6 weeks at 100% pay, but our employees only have 60% pay. And so at that time I had approached them about potentially, providing 100% pay, even for 30 days or something along those lines. And at that time they chose not to do it. They were actually very good about listening to, my concerns about it and my concerns about other employees not, being able to have the time off to do it. Since then, we have had about 3 other living donors that I know of for sure in our system that have donated, and they haven't put any policy in place. But, I do think that the more we see of some of these living donors, hopefully, especially healthcare companies like I work for, it would be nice to see them take the lead on this and implement a policy that would allow their own employees to go and donate, because I think that would make a big difference for other companies to follow suit if healthcare companies would really take the lead on that. And my husband works for United Healthcare, and same thing. I would love to see these big healthcare companies take the lead and go ahead and implement some kind of a leave policy for living donors, because I think it would make a huge difference in allowing other companies to perhaps follow suit.
Hello, this is Andrew, and I can help answer the original question a little bit. State employees by law in Wisconsin are allowed up to 30 days of paid leave for donating organs, or 5 days for donating bone marrow.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. This is Michelle. I just have a follow-up question for Nick. Nicole, how are you feeling now, almost 2 years post organ donation?
I feel fine. I feel just normal. I'll say I do get tired, but that could just be age. So I'm just going to chalk it up as age versus anything else. But otherwise, I feel just fine. Same as I did before. Can't even tell that I'm missing a kidney. Just keep the water flowing in, and you're good to go.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other questions for Chelsea or Nicole? With that, thank you so very much for being a part of this webinar this evening, for sharing your story and sharing what a remarkable company Baker Tilly is to work for. And we will definitely stay connected to you to learn of initiatives happening on your end, and vice versa, as we've got an amazing group of donors and advocates and friends like the National Kidney Foundation advocating for donors. And Nick and I also want to give a special thank you to you for being a part of the Living Donors Together of Wisconsin group. All of our voices together make a larger impact. So thank you for being a part of that, and again, a part of tonight's program.
Yes, thank you, Chelsea and Nicole. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the invite and considering us. And again, Baker Tilly, I will say, is just above and beyond anything I ever expected or would have ever asked for. Just totally amazing. So very appreciative.
That's great. Wonderful. Great to have an employer like that.
It is.
Excellent. And with that, we will turn the program over to Cindy Huber with the National Kidney Foundation to introduce our next speaker.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks to Chelsea and Nicole for joining us. Truly, Baker Tilly is an exemplary company in our state and nationally. So tonight's program continues the theme of advocacy with a real advocate himself, and I'm proud to say that I'm part of the same organization that Andrew is. He's a hardworking professional on behalf of patients and families and making change throughout the country. So we're honored to get another big picture perspective on advocacy from you, Andrew. Thank you so much, because I know you're staying super late for us. I know how much preparation you've put into tonight's program, and I want to turn it over to you, but give you my personal thanks for being the advocate that you are and providing leadership to our organization throughout the country. So Andrew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can see my screen.
I can see it.
You know, I want to continue with that one theme. Oops, let me flip those around. Okay, well, I want to continue with that one theme about voices together while my slideshow is popping back up.
Yeah,
because that's what advocacy really is about. It's about a lot of people getting together and changing policy together. It's about one person raising their voice, getting another person to raise their voice, another person. Pretty soon you have a chorus, and that's how things change. And you know, we are all here to inspire change through advocacy, whether it's patient engagement, whether it's engaging with your corporations, your employers, or other companies in the area.
Andrew, I think we're now unmuted.
Oh, okay. You can hear me now then?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so I went to a little bit of a spiel without, I don't know how many people heard that. But what I was saying was that, you know, to continue the theme that someone just mentioned, advocacy in policy is about voices being raised together. It's about one person getting up and raising their voice, and then another person raising their voice, and another person raising their voice. You know, that's how great movements like Me Too were started, because a couple of people got up and said, this is something that needs to change. They got a few other people to get up, and pretty soon you had this huge number of people making a difference. They were inspiring change through an advocacy activity. And that can be through patient engagement, that can be through working with companies in your area, like was done with Baker Tilly, but it can also be done through advocating for policy change in government. And you'll have to excuse the really bad headshot. I was told I had to have a requisite headshot in there, and I don't have very good ones. But, you know, why are we engaging in advocacy, and what is advocacy? Webster Dictionary defines advocacy as the act or process of supporting a cause or a proposal. In this case, advocacy means supporting change to improve laws and regulations that impact the kidney disease community. There's a good quote from Ellen DeGeneres, which is, "I'm not an activist. I don't look for controversy. I'm not a political person, but I am a person with compassion." And, you know, at the end of the day, now policy advocacy is a way to achieve a change for not just one person, but for many people. By changing laws at the state, local, or federal level, you change it for everyone who is governed by that law. And I want to, you know, give a shout out to the Wisconsin NKF and to the people in Wisconsin, because they actually are a great example of advocacy advancement. Not only are they a great supporter of the national activities that NKF engages in, such as our Kidney Patient Summit in Washington, D.C., where we invite patients to come and lobby Congress with us in March, but they also trailblazed a number of state laws like the tax credit to help organ donors recoup unreimbursed expenses related to organ donation. As I understand it, Wisconsin was the first place that was ever passed, and everywhere else is just trying to replicate what you guys have achieved. So, you know, and you've all heard the quote, all politics is local, and it is. Everything revolves around legislators trying to serve the people, and they want to know what you want, what you need, and what you want to be done. And if you don't raise your voice, you can't make change because they don't know change needs to be made. And this relationship begins at home. So, you know, the biggest reason why we are all here are the people who are represented by these statistics, the people who are diagnosed, the transplant donors, the wait list, and unfortunately the people who a transplant came too late for. That's why we're all advocating, or that's why people have donated an organ, kidney in this case, to another person to save a life. So I want to highlight a couple of things that have been done by advocates in the kidney disease community with NKFW and with a lot of our allied organizations. Last year, for example, there was a new bill introduced, which we are working hard to pass to promote early detection of kidney disease and treatment. We reintroduced the Living Donor Protection Act, which would prevent discrimination in long-term life and disability insurance, and would clarify FMLA coverage of living donation. We've had this Congress, since last year and this year, more than 50% more sponsors than we did last two-year Congress. So we've made a lot of leaps and strides, and that's because of advocates writing or visiting their legislators. Something that our advocates around the country have been doing also is trying to raise awareness through proclamations, such as the Living Kidney Donor Days or the World Kidney Day proclamations. We've had a number of them, including in Arizona, Florida, Indiana, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Texas, Nebraska. There are a few other states that I could announce as well, but and you know, there's some great successes we've had at the local level that impact a smaller number of people, but have a great impact on those people. There's a program in Pennsylvania, for example, that helps low-income kidney disease patients afford to pay for their medication, transplant to dialysis, doctors, bills, and other needs like that. And last year, the Pennsylvania state legislature was looking to cut that program by 80% in efforts to cut funding across the board. And because of the outcry that the kidney patients in Pennsylvania made, we were able to reduce that cut to only 12%, which was a huge win because Pennsylvania changed their budget by $2 billion. So we did something that many other groups weren't able to do because of the patients in the kidney disease community coming out and raising their voices. And this year, we've had a lot of great successes already. So a few of them are the shout outs and proclamations in states across the country, such as this one from Pennsylvania, or speeches on the floors of state capitals or on the US Capitol. We have also had comments entered into the congressional record. This one was by Congressman Posey for a walk in Florida this past weekend. And he was also there to present awards to 17 mothers who are living donors. This is one that we're all very proud of. A version of the Living Donor Protection Act was passed in Idaho. That was a first-time piece of legislation in a state. And I'll tell you a little bit about it later on. In Maryland, there was also a tax credit passed for $7,500 to help living donors recoup expenses, unreimbursed expenses, similar to your law that you pioneered. And this picture is Colorado State Capitol because just a few weeks ago, the day before they adjourned for the year, they passed a tax credit of 35% for employers offering paid leave for their employees of up to 10 days. So there's a lot going on around the country, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level. And these things happen because of people like you. I mean, who could say no to that little cute face? Patients who came to our Kidney Patient Summit, and the family and friends of the two advocates in Idaho who were the two people who made that law get passed through the legislature. Two people made it all happen in Idaho. You know, it's all through advocates like you stepping up, making a difference, whether it's in DC or at home in your state capitals or your county seats. You know, be it 1, 2, or 200 people coming together to make a difference. You know, the power of one person is really immense at the end of the day, because one person can make a huge difference. But when you get a collective of ones, you can just hit it out of the ballpark. You know, and the case in point, I wanted to mention the story of the Idaho bill passing. Marty Durand and Donna Yule, who are in this picture in the front, decided they wanted to make a difference. So they took the federal version of the bill, they took it to a state legislator, and they worked with that state senator to craft a version of it that would work in that particular state. And they worked with our government relations shop to put together information, including statistics on kidney disease in the state, put together stories of kidney patients in the state, and then they built a coalition in the state legislature and in the kidney disease community to pass it. It took a couple of months, took 2-3 months, but they not only succeeded in getting the support of the House and Senate to pass it, but they got the governor and they got the insurance commissioner to support this legislation. In the end, there was no one really opposing this legislation because they did such a fantastic job crafting the message, the stories, and their support network. It was a huge success, and it's something that we are looking to do in many other states looking forward. You know, there are a lot of activities that you, as a donor, your friends, people you know with kidney disease, your family can engage in with NKFW, Wisconsin, and the national staff like ourselves. You can join us in meeting with your state or federal legislators. You can, schedule a meeting when let's say your federal legislators, your congressmen and senators are back home during July 4th recess or during the month of August. Meet with them, educate them about kidney disease, or about donation, about your story. That's what they want to hear. Town halls. A lot of legislators will schedule town halls to talk to their constituents and see what issues are impacting them and what their constituents want to tell their legislators. In one case, one of our advocates in New York City went to a town hall held by a congressman who is a supporter of ours, and she's not only thanked him online through emails to his office or on social media, but she went there with a couple of NKF staff. She went there with a number of friends and family in a group, and were able to, as a group, thank this congressman publicly for his leadership in kidney disease issues. And that makes a huge difference. It's showing our support for the great things that these legislators are doing, or asking them why they haven't shown this leadership and saying, would you please join us in supporting the kidney disease community by sponsoring laws such as Living Donor Protection Act. You can also join us in getting proclamations in Wisconsin, or if you live in another state elsewhere, to help build awareness in the community. And they're very easy to do, actually, and we can give you instructions on how to pursue that. And you've been hearing about a lot of the state laws that we have been working on changing. you can join us in promoting these, whether you want to be a leader in the community in this initiative, or if you want to just join us and share your story and support the cause. We would love to have you in some of these things. So, how not to run off a cliff while you're trying to make a difference. I hope everyone here likes Looney Tunes. So, as I've been telling you, legislators want to hear from their constituents. A lot of these graphs, a lot of statistics are from a group called the Congressional Management Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to teaching organizations like ours and congressional offices how to better communicate with each other and with the constituents they serve. So this is something, was a study done a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, of senior congressional staff. And in it, they were asking, if your member of Congress has not already achieved a firm decision on an issue, how much influence must a person, or how much influence might a person have by directing these kind of strategies at a legislator? Notice the first two things are meetings and contact from a state constituent. Next on that list is an individualized email or a personalized snail mail. Up high on there are letters to the editor, town halls, and then you look far down there on the list are things like visits from a lobbyist. They want to hear from you. One of the fun statistics that kind of highlights the importance of meeting with your legislators, especially back home in the state, is this. The average tenure of a Washington government relations policy staffer in a congressional office is 1.7 years. The average tenure of a district director in your state for a congressman or senator is 8.5 years. So when you build a relationship with your district staff, be it the policy person back in the district, whether it be the caseworker who works on healthcare or the district director, those people stay in those offices for a long time. So the impact you're making has a years-long educational benefit for not only them, but for everyone that they are helping and serving. So, I've been talking a lot about your story, individualization of your message, your personal outreach. Some statistics here on the number of emails, for example, in this one case, that have to be received by a legislative office in Congress before they really pay attention. Personalized emails, versus a form letter email. Less than 50 emails need to be received by 70% of offices if they're personalized before a legislative office pays attention. So less than 50, compared to about 17% if they're a form letter will pay attention. And you keep noticing you need to get huge numbers of letters into a legislative office if they're not personalized. If you're not telling your story in these emails, in these tweets, in these Facebook posts, they don't find it as appealing and they don't pay attention as much. Your story makes all the difference. And it's really easier than you think to make a huge difference. Social media is a great way to prove this. Another CMF study showed that 80% of offices need between 1 and 30 social media posts before it comes to the attention of a legislator personally. And many legislators pay attention to their or have their own social media accounts. It's not just Donald Trump. He didn't originate that phenomena. Many legislators, House or Senate, and at the state level have their own Facebook accounts, Twitter accounts, and they run those. The tweets you see are them tweeting. They're not some staffer. So one thing I want to point out, though, is when you're reaching out to these offices, you need to make sure you point out that you are a constituent and where you live. Put your name on there, put your town on there, because it's very hard for them to tell if you are a constituent or not. I put this up to help kind of showcase that the constituent connection is so important. And unless you tell them you're a constituent, they won't know it over social media. So you're asking, what's the message? You're asking, how do I do this? Some of you might use Facebook, some of you might use Twitter, some of you might use all the newfangled social media tools out there. Some of you might not use it at all. But for those of you who do, we have a great toolkit on advocacy.kidney.org. I put the full link here in case the slides get sent out later, with instructions, like a video actually on how to create these messages, or how to create videos if you want to do that, samples that you could tweet out or post on your Facebook, how to find your legislators' handles so that you can reach out to them directly. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to highlight this one point: the importance of a relationship. Legislators, whether they're federal or state, they really place a high value on the people who spend time trying to get to know them in their office, rather than just coming in once in a blue moon when they want to complain about something. And it's a long-term process, building a relationship. You know, everyone knows this with their friends, family, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, etc. The people you should get to know: the healthcare legislative assistant, if you're talking at the federal level, or the single policy staffer that many state legislators have. Or if you're talking with the state offices for federal legislators, get to know the state director or the district director. Get to know the caseworkers in those offices, because those are the people who work hand in hand trying to make citizens' lives better by trying to solve their problems. And if you can tell them your story and get them more engaged with our community, you can give them more information about the resources available, you can make a huge difference in how they treat the needs of a kidney patient who comes to their door with a problem. If you tell them about resources that NKF Wisconsin has, like peer mentoring, that they weren't aware of, they now know about that program. And they can say, hey, to a constituent, hey, I heard about this great program that would be perfect for you. It's a peer mentoring program where you can talk to people like yourself and hear their story, and they can help you through some of the problems that you are facing. Or the Big Ask, Big Give workshops, or any number of other things out there, whether it's NKF or not. But I mean, NKF has a lot of very fantastic resources for kidney patients and donors. So if you want to meet with your legislator's office, the things to talk about. What's the impact of kidney disease on your state or a congressperson's district? What are the reasons that you are supporting or opposing something? What is your ask? What are you asking for? And what is your story? So you can see that senior staffers and legislators find these things to be very helpful and very important. Yet most people, when they write, meet, tweet, post, trying to get their legislator to do something, most people don't include any of these things. Only half of the people who are writing to talk about an issue actually write the reason why they're supporting it, or their specific request of that legislator. So these are things that you need to make sure that you're including if you ever meet or try to message your legislator's office. Extremely important, extremely helpful. So how can you find out about the support the support level of your legislator? Are they supportive of kidney disease patients? How can you vet them? One of the ways is through congress.gov. It is a website run by the Library of Congress. It has every piece of legislation ever written, whether it's passed or not, and you can find out how legislators voted on these things, whether they were sponsors, etc. Two bills that we are moving at the federal level, for example, the Living Donor Protection Act, which is 1270, or our early detection and treatment legislation, 3867. You can go there and see whether your legislators are co-sponsors of these pieces of legislation. If they are, thank them, because they are already going out of their way to support us. They're talking to their colleagues, trying to get them to support it as well. If they're not there, ask them why, and tell them why they need to become a sponsor of these pieces of legislation that are important to our community. So if you want to get involved, if you want to get involved at a higher level, if you want to get trained on how to do a lot of these kinds of activities, there's a couple of different groups out there that NKF hosts. One is our Kidney Advocacy Committee, which is a group of patients, living donors, their family, and their caregivers who engage in both policy advocacy, which is a lot of what I've been talking about, or the patient engagement and education and the corporate engagement that we were hearing about earlier. So they'll speak to an FDA panel and talk about their story and teach bureaucrats how kidney disease impacts them and how policies impact them. Or they'll help speak to a company and say, this is why you should have a policy that helps living donors or promote living donation, or helps educate people at a dialysis facility about their rights and about information they should be aware of, or helps teach someone who is a prospective living donor about why they should donate, if there are any issues they should be concerned about, things they should look into, you know, and the great reasons for doing it, the lives that they can save doing this. There's also the Kidney Outreach Team, which is a new group, which I've just recently started, which is policy advocacy only. And it includes non-patients as well. And it will engage in many similar activities that CAC does on the policy side, which are lobbying your legislators, meeting with them both in DC as well as in district, writing op-eds about how important kidney disease policy changes are and why they should support them, and working with us at the state level in promoting changes to state law. If you want to take action right now, though, something that doesn't require an advanced training or scheduling meetings is going to advocacy.kidney.org and just writing your legislator on something like, please support the Living Donor Protection Act, or support early detection treatment, support the funding of government programs that pay for the research into kidney disease, or pay for materials that many living donors read before they go in to donate, or that support patients and donors. There's a lot of financing that goes towards these kinds of programs at groups like the CDC, DOD, at HHS, Health and Human Services. And it's very important that we keep showing our support for these programs in the halls of Congress or your state legislature. So places you can get some education on your own. Advocacy.kidney.org, as I mentioned earlier, has some ways to not only message your legislators, the bottom half of that picture, but also has things like our Summit webpage. It has a guide to online advocacy. It also has things like lists of your legislator's social media accounts. And you can also click on the Find Your Legislator tab to find out who your legislators are, if you don't know that already. There's also a great spot on the kidney.org website under Advocacy Resources, where we have a lot of how-to guides. And I'll be updating some of those with video guides during this year as well. But there's also policy fact sheets that you can take to your meetings or email into your legislators. There's information on how kidney disease impacts your state. So there's a lot of great information available for you if you want to become active in whether it be changing federal law or changing state laws and policies. So there's something I wanted to show you before we actually get to questions. And it is a fantastic video that was just released a few days ago. People we talked to and interviewed at our Kidney Patient Summit. So hopefully everyone can see this.
We're here on the Hill today to make a change because of the fact that kidney disease is a crisis. It's a crisis across the country.
Thousands of unnecessary deaths occur each year. These are staggering numbers, and this is the reason our programs and services are so critical across the country.
Tonight, approximately 100 patient advocates, including kidney disease patients, their family members, and living organ donors, stepped in for the 1 in 7 Americans who have chronic kidney diseases.
Being here at the Kidney Summit with the Kidney Advocacy Committee allows me to voice my concerns about kidney disease and raise awareness to it, to bring hope to people who are suffering from this disease.
Kidney patients like me from all over the country are here to meet with lawmakers and tell them about why kidneys are so important to your health.
I love it that we have a young ambassador to say, this is what I've gone through, this is what I've done, you can do it too.
Until we find a 100% cure, we're going to do everything that we can for the awareness and the treatment.
Really what we're trying to do at these meetings is put a face to an issue. And the way that we can do that as patients is to just share what it is that we've been through and the things that have been tough and the things that bring people hope so that we can share that and bring about change.
You have so many ambassadors that's taking time out of your busy life and come up here and see us and advocate for something that is literally a life or death situation means the world to me. There is no better advocate than someone with a personal story.
Never in our wildest dreams were we anticipating kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, organ failure, and needing to find a donor, much less having to find a living donor.
We have thousands of people on the transplant list now, and for many people it takes up to 5 years to even move up that list. And so we need more people who are willing to be living donors because it only takes one to make a difference, right? You only need one kidney to live, and it only takes one to make someone else's life much better.
I was 9 years old when I was diagnosed with kidney disease, so I want to make a difference. I want to make a change. I want to be here to be able to tell others that we need to do something about our healthcare system by helping with some of these bills that we are looking at today.
3. So the bills we're talking about today are 3867, which is the early detection programs, and then 1270, which is the Living Donor Protection Act. And both of those will help a lot to not only slow the progression of kidney disease, but also get people out of it more quickly with a transplant.
Just last week, we had someone contact us that had donated their kidney to their friend who had Alport syndrome, and their employer didn't give them the time off to do so, and they lost their job for saving someone's life, and obviously that needs to change.
Something as simple as blood pressure screenings would save so many lives and would prevent people from ending up on dialysis.
Congress can do more, and we will do more to prevent kidney disease from occurring and to delay the progression of kidney disease to kidney failure.
This year has been really great so far, and I think a lot of that is just because we are coming here every single year and they're becoming more familiar with our message about organ donation and issues related to the National Kidney Foundation and kidneys in general.
It gives a voice to the voiceless to come up here, talk to our representatives and our senators and say this is what will make it better for our lives as kidney patients or as folks at risk for kidney disease.
So hopefully you liked that. I think it's an amazing video, which we are looking forward to sharing as broadly as we can. So, and to finish this off, I wanted to have one last quote, and it's from John Quincy Adams. It's kind of a favorite of mine. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. And there's an opportunity for all of you, all of us, to become that leader, working through groups like NKFW Wisconsin to achieve more for kidney patients. So I know that there are a number of questions that came in or comments, and I'll go there really quickly to see what they were. Sarah asked, how important are the number of co-sponsors on a bill, and what is the best way to ask our representatives to co-sponsor? Depends, I hate to say it, on who the sponsors are. There are, to get a little bit in the weeds, committees that cover certain issues. Like healthcare is covered by primarily two different committees in the House and the Senate on the federal level. And if you can pass a bill with 10 or 15 legislators if you have the right people on those committees. But it's sometimes hard to reach people in those committees. Sometimes they're opposed to the message. Sometimes there's, various reasons. Or sometimes they're so inundated by people trying to get them to co-sponsor something that they are just taking a lot of time to relay a message and figure out what they want to support, what really impacts them and their constituency. The best way to ask your representatives to co-sponsor is honestly calling their office, saying, "Do you mind if I come in to speak with you, the legislator, or your senior staffer, about kidney disease?" One, because that way you can get to know them, you can become a resource for them if they ever have a question about kidney disease, but you can also personally share your story. You can become not just a voice, but you can also become a face with that voice. And that makes a huge impact, especially as they get to know you. You saw Bobby Reed from Pennsylvania. Her son in college, or right before college, had kidney failure. And when she was looking for a donor, she reached out to a number of sources, including her local state representatives, one of whom was the Speaker of the State House in Pennsylvania. And that state legislator became a great supporter and helped her through social media, for example, to reach out to people to find a donor for her son. And he has become a strong supporter of ours on any number of issues, including the fight that we had in Pennsylvania last year. And she goes to him on a regular basis to help him and to ask him for things when we are engaged in something in Pennsylvania. But really the best way is to meet with them if you have the time to do that. If you don't, reaching out to their office through social media is a fantastic way, or by emailing, but making sure that you add your personal story, you personalize the message that you send them. Because offices get 5,000 or 10,000 messages a week. What was it? February last year, during one of the campaigns for the Department of Education secretary, there were 4 offices alone got over 2 million phone calls from across the country. So there's a lot of people trying to get heard. And so in order to make your message effective, you need to do all of those things on that one chart, which were talk about why you're an advocate, talk about your story, talk about your issue, and what you want from them. So the video, is the video available on social media? Or can we share it personally? The video is available on social media. It's on YouTube. We can, I presume, send a link out to everyone, Cindy. But you can also find the video on the kidney.org advocacy resources page. It is up there currently, so that you can grab it from there as well and share it with your friends. We'd love you for doing that. It would be fantastic. Are there any other questions that I can answer while I'm here?
Well, this is Merle. I just make a comment on that. These presentations and the video will all be available sometime next week on our website, the kidneywi.org.
So you have my email. If you want to reach out to me at all, please do so. I'm here to help you in any way that you need, as I know that Cindy and her team are as well. So I really do thank you for taking the time out of your evening to listen to me talk about advocacy from the policy perspective. It really is important, and a lot of stuff happens. You hear all the stories about Congress being deadlocked, but a lot of policy changes happen still at the federal level, and even more happens in your state and local communities. So you can make a huge impact. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time.
Well, thanks, Andrew. This is Cindy. So Jill, Michelle, do you have some comments?
Thank you, Andrew. This is Jill. Thank you very much. That was really informative. I know for somebody, like myself that loves to talk about donation, but sometimes not really so much involved on the political front, I think it's very helpful to know kind of how to approach legislatures, how to approach, any of the representatives that we have. So thank you very much, Andrew.
Glad I could be here.
Well, and as we look, this is Michelle, as we look to wrap up the program this evening, does anyone have any final questions or comments from our participants this evening? Again, we love this opportunity for these webinars to be interactive as well. So you can type in your questions if you have any, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions you may have. We have a few final announcements or things to share this evening. One of them being the Capital City Run and Walk in Madison on July 28th. We are so hopeful that the Living Donors of Together group will join us in Madison for that run walk experience. We're looking to have a gathering of all of us, so stay tuned for more details on the whereabouts of all of that activity. But I did start a run walk team. So I signed up through the link that is posted on the National Kidney Foundation website, as well as Living Donors Together of Wisconsin. So we have our very own Living Donors Together of Wisconsin walk team. So I encourage everyone, if that date works for you, to sign up to be a part of that team. And that gives us an opportunity to raise awareness for the cause, as well as potentially raise money to support the cause as well. And I love those online vehicles that give us the easy links and the opportunities to share our story within our social media and friend networks and family networks. So I encourage everyone to do that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through the group. I'm excited to be able to meet everybody there. And as we continue the engagement, it definitely doesn't stop. It doesn't stop here, and it doesn't stop on July 28th. We want to continue to connect and to share stories and to hear what resources you feel, whether they're lacking in our state or questions you may have, because quite honestly, that's how Jill and I became the co-chairs of this initiative this year, was through staying connected with the National Kidney Foundation and with Cindy and saying, we want to help, we want to get involved. How can we do that? We didn't feel that there was, enough of our voices being heard in our great state. So I'm confident and really excited that this is just the start of the strength and the passion that the Living Donors in Wisconsin are going to share in our community. So I too thank Andrew for your words and your education for us, because this is definitely not a space that I'm comfortable in, but I definitely want to get involved in. So I learned a lot, including, the links and the resources to be able to go learn more and stay connected to what's happening and get involved. So thank you very much for that. Jill, do you have any other final announcements for us this evening?
Just that I found the video and posted it on the Living Donors Together of Wisconsin page. So we're good.
Excellent. Cindy, any final words?
Yeah, I think on your screen or it was on your screen. Just to remind everyone that we send out an evaluation after each of the webinars. So please give us your feedback. This year, as you know, we've done a series of webinars really focusing on how to, after donation especially, how to keep your experiences, your expertise in the forefront, because here in Wisconsin tonight we still have over 1,800 people who are waiting for kidneys. And so raising our voices, as Andrew challenged us all to do, it is the individual that makes a key difference. Those of you who are living donors made a difference in not only one person's life and a family's life, but in a community. And so our goal is to inspire each of us to take a new step in our journey as advocates. And so our goal also in coming together in Madison in July is to give Jill and Michelle and myself more input about how we can keep the momentum going statewide and contribute to the momentum nationally as it relates to promoting living donation. I want to thank both Merle and John, as well as our speakers tonight. We were operating with being on the end of a junction, I found out, from our internet provider. And so I appreciate everyone's flexibility as we went to Plan B tonight. And again, thank you most importantly, to Jill and Michelle. The National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin relies on volunteers to make all of our programs happen. And so I'm grateful to have two amazing volunteers being the thought leaders behind all of our efforts this year and their continued efforts on behalf of all patients and families here in Wisconsin. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully in Madison on July 28th. Good night.